traditional folk song from Eastern Mediterranean with roots in Greek, Arabic, and Turkish culture. So the name roughly translates as Egyptian girl. And the song has been adapted many times over decades. Probably the most famous modern version was the rock instrumental surf rock guitarist Dick Dale, who did a version of it in 1962. And it gained wider popularity after it was included in the Quentin Tarantino film Pulp Fiction in 1994. So we're going to continue on now with an arrangement of Follow You, Follow Me. It's a song by the British rock band Genesis, released in 1978 from their album And Then There Were Three. And at the time, the group was going through some transition, and this song kind of represents a significant shift in their musical style from the more artsy, kind of progressive rock music of the early 1970s toward more of a accessible pop style that they developed into the 1980s. So here is Follow You, Follow Me. next we have an arrangement of Flying the Moon, which is a classic American song written in 1954 by Art Howard, originally titled In Other Words. It became one of the most iconic jazz standards of the 20th century, the most famous version being the Frank Sinatra recording in 1964 with the Count Basie Orchestra arranged by Quincy Jones, and this one was a request. Many of these guys requested this one, so we find it. Here it is. So we had less pieces this semester because this last piece is a little long. It's by a progressive rock metal band celebrating their 40th anniversary performing. That is the band Dream Theater, which originally has their origins in Long Island. And this song, Space Divest, is this very haunting closing track to their third studio album, 1994's Awake. It was written solely by the keyboardist, their founding keyboardist, Kevin Moore, and shortly after the making of that album, he left the band. And the song is really a big standout from the rest of their catalog, as it's very deeply introspective and a departure from their usual musical complexity, and uses actually elements of a lot of minimalism in the song, in the composition. So here's Space Divest again. Forgot.